just want to move to the audience. For those of you who have got jobs, I mean, a lot of the people here must have been through different interviews as well. What have been your own personal experiences? Mon, how have you dealt with interviews?
I face a lot of more assessment centres rather than interviews. The interviews are just a small part of the assessment centre. But I think the best way in an interview is just to engage with the interviewer, just personally, in his personality, and try and have a good time in the interview, rather than become look a bit boring and a bit too technical.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, no, that's true. All right, let's get some other views as well. What about at the back? Have you had any interviews for jobs or even for colleges? Even to go to university, you need to...
Well, yeah, I have
where are you studying at the moment? Are you A-level?
I'm doing my A-levels currently,
okay.
but I had to have a lot of interviews to get into colleges.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So how have you dealt with that?
I try to be confident, have all my paperwork with me, but the thing I really found difficult was, when the interviewer was there, how to face him. If he says something that's out of, that you're not expecting, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah.
Because that happens to people sometimes.
Yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, sorry, Pete, just going back to Pete, I mean, face-to-face interaction is not easy. Let's be honest, a lot of people do get nervous in that situation. Are there any sort of like practical tips you could give us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and you've got to remember that up to 90% of communication is non-verbal, so very much the face-to-face contact. And the way to get around that is fully prepare yourself. The evening before, preferably, just have a relaxing evening. And on the day, remember that anxiety, and there better be a bit of anxiety, otherwise you're too blasé. But that produces adrenaline. Adrenaline is a fight or flight mechanism. And therefore, you actually need to burn some of that off. Otherwise, it's eating away inside you. So when you get there, if it's up on the first or second floor, actually run up the stairs a bit. That will work it off. And then breathing exercises. If you breathe in for 7 seconds, hold it for a couple of seconds, and out for 11, call it 4, 7, 11. Do that 4 times, 7 in, 11 out, and that will get you really calm, and that will mean that you're much more able to interact with the person. All right, fantastic. I want to get some more views from the audience here specifically about interviews. Mother, you got a point?
Recently, I had a phone interview for O2, and because it was my first phone interview ever, I was kind of nervous. It's not going to be as nervous as face-to-face because they can't see what you're doing.
But still, you're unsure, isn't it? Because you haven't done one before.
And after that, she did give me feedback on my interview, and I was kind of happy about that. But when the face-to-face interview came, I was really nervous. My first interview ever for O2 as well. It's a big company, and I'm like, really, my heart's just about to jump out my mouth, and just proper really scared. But during the interview, he was like really sociable person, really bubbly, and we got talking, and like we started talking about other stuff, football, etc. And although it was it did kind of get informal. It calmed me down, so I could talk to him.
I think because employees know that everyone gets nervous, they want to calm you down so they can get to know you better as well.
And I think
it always helps, isn't it, if you've got someone who's like that.
Even though if the employer's not talking to you as much, maybe you should try to converse with them a little bit more informally, not too much informal, but just how to say good, weather's nice, whatever, just talk some rubbish, just
exactly.
try to...
Rizwan, you've got a point at the back, yeah?
I think it's fairly important that you do the background research on the company that you're going for. I had an interview in the summer for a 3-month placement, and they were mostly interested in what I know about what they do. And they wanted me to tell about the history of the company and how they operate. And so I think that's quite an important thing to consider before going for an interview.
Yeah, that's good.
The interview preparation, obviously you're going to be asked questions, so maybe just to look at some of the questions that you could possibly be asked and to prepare for them. And don't forget to ask them questions. But just one little trick. Mostly with graduates, you're asked competency-based questions. So, for example, you're asked, here we work in a team. Give us an example of where you've used your team working skills to achieve a goal or a target. So there's a very handy technique called the STAR technique for this. And S standing for situation. So describe the situation you're in. T is the task. What was the actual task you were going to perform. A is the action, what action you performed, and then R, the result. Yeah. So that really gives you a perspective and structure on how to actually respond to those types of questions.
No, that's really helpful. One thing you talk about questions, some people, what I've heard is that you should actually, you know, ask questions to the interviewer as well. So what kind of questions should you ask? Because the danger is, if you ask a question that has an obvious answer, you know, it looks like you haven't done your research. So what kind of questions should you ask?
Well, I think you just need to relax. It depends, again, on the vacancy you're applying for. There may be certain questions you want to, that are specific for a particular role, but you can ask the interviewer. They're human as well. Ask them, so, you know, how long have you been in the company for? What sort of appeal to you about the company? What are the promotional development opportunities within the company to progress? So, sort of questions like that, just to really sort of build that sort of rapport with them as well, and get that inside information.
Okay, all right. In the last few minutes, I just want to take this opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask you some questions now that you're here. It'd be a good opportunity. Anything that we've discussed today, we've talked about CV, interview, looking forward. Are there any questions that you have that you'd like to ask the panel? Tahir, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, when I first started looking for a job, I was in my final year of uni. And one of the main pieces of advice I was given, that when it came to the interview, aside from a firm handshake and always maintaining eye contact, never look away, I was taught to ask a lot of questions. I know we've just briefly covered that topic, but one of the, I don't know if this is true or not, but I was told, ask so many questions so that they do most of the talking. And then when it comes to the end of the interview, because they've done all the talking, they think it's gone really well. Yeah. So I don't know, what's your views on that? Do you reckon that's true?
I'm a bit sceptical, to be honest, because you're invited to an interview so they can find out about you, not you find out more about them than they know about you. So, you know, you need to be sensible about these things. So have those questions prepared, but don't blitz it, for God's sake. Yeah, just be sensible.
There's going to come a point where you can see the interviewer's eyes glaze over, and that's when you know you've gone on for too long. But I think the key thing about the questions you ask them is that they're an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you understand that company, the industry it's in, and maybe something about its competitors. So you could ask them questions about where they see the company going in a few years' time. What major challenges do they see facing their organisation? I mean, they may well have asked you the same question, you know, what do you think the main challenges are for this industry? But if they haven't, then that's a good opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge a little bit further.
Okay, Peter, you're nodding. You
yeah,
agree with
sure.
that?
Yeah. Because I think that really the interview should be a two-way process, because you want to make sure that you're going to be happy working for that company. You're not just there to get the job. It's got to be the right company. So, yes, you do need to ask them some questions, and maybe at the moment, you know, how do you see the company coping with the recession? And things like, is the company in a growth stage at the moment, or do you think it's consolidating? You know, I'm just thinking about my future. Where am I going to be going? So you do need to ask some of those questions to show that you're not just there to get a job. You're there to be part of the
abuse.
Okay. We just want to have a wrap up of the discussion we've had here today. Looking to the future, how do you see the job market? Do you think it will get better? How do you think it'll change in the next 5 years or so?
I think it will get better. I think as the economic situation eases, then the confidence will return to both the employers and the recruitment market. So I think people should stay as positive and as focused as they can. It may be that the jobs appear in slightly different sectors in the numbers compared with other sectors that they weren't seen before. So you need to keep abreast of what's happening in the industries that interest you, and just make sure that you're aware of where the growth might be in future months and future years.
Okay. Peter, how would you like to wrap up the discussion we've had here today? What's your final thoughts?
I feel that it will actually improve in the future, and thinking about flexibility, remember that candle makers were affected a lot when they brought out the light bulb. And so we've got to accept that change is going to happen. So the job that you're trying to get now may not even be there in 5 years' time. So be flexible, and maybe you do look for something else.
Fantastic.